and we have very fancy programs. You have your own hotel with your wildlife projects, and that can cost up to 1,000 a week, US dollars. And also scuba diving projects are very expensive. But if you want to teach abroad, as an English teacher, for example, it can be very cheap, like only maybe $3 or $50 a week, and it will include housing, meals, transportation. Yeah.
Welcome. This is Phil Michaels, Forbes 30 Under 30 entrepreneur and performance coach. Forbes names the top 30 entrepreneurs, leaders, and stars in the world, and each week we bring you one of them to help you level up in your life and business. From celebrities like LeBron James to Kylie Jenner and Cardi B, you're sure to learn from the list. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now it's time to level up. Level up. Level up. Welcome to Phil with Forbes 30 podcast. Today we have a very special guest, a first-generation college graduate, a social entrepreneur and startup strategist with significant experience from both sides of the Atlantic. He was named as an emerging European leader by President Barack Obama, Forbes Europe 30 Under 30, as well as Capital Magazine's Young Elite 40 Under 40 for his world-changing idea to revolutionize the meaningful travel industry. His social startup, VolunteerWorld, actively supports 1,600 projects in more than 82 countries across the world, including US, Germany, and Europe. VolunteerWorld connects volunteers with companies for volunteer projects around the world. They are the Airbnb for international volunteering. Being the founder of one of the most successful German social startups, he has uniquely positioned himself to empathize and understand what social entrepreneurs need at the start of their journey. Please welcome Pascal.
Thank you for having me, Phil.
Very excited to have you here. My pleasure. I'm honored. Pascal is one of my good friends. I typically call him my German bodyguard because every time we travel together, especially with the Forbes events, he's always right by my side and wearing the stereotypical black bodyguard t-shirt. And I usually have my other German friends on the right and left of me. So he is very close to my heart, dear friend. We've traveled around the world. We've been in a wedding together. We've been in California, in Germany, and I'm very excited to finally share his story with the world. You need to hear this one. He has such an incredible business. But before we dive into that, Pascal, please share where you were when you found out you made the list.
I was in London. So I got an email from Forbes that I may be on the list and that there is a big event. And then I was invited to central London to a restaurant. And then my name was announced and I was overwhelmed. I was more than happy to be on the list Forbes Under 30. I never dreamed about it. So it's a big honor to be on the list. And it turned out that I have had the opportunity to make good friends, as you said, on both sides of the Atlantic, in America. I have new friends in China, in Africa, from all over the world, very inspirational people. And once again, thank you for having me on your new podcast.
Thank you for being here. I know the listeners are really going to benefit from this story and are most likely going to take part in your company and what you have to offer.
Yeah.
And I want to echo what you said. The Forbes list is incredible because you have people from around the world that are not just great people, but are actually crushing it in their respective industry. And isn't it amazing how once you have a friend in another country, it's almost like you have an extension to that part of the world now, their culture, their food, their music. And you might even get to visit that part of the country and have a personal tour guide as a result of having that new relationship, that new friendship.
And Phil, you know, what I really like is when you discuss about a topic and you can get so many perspectives on that controversial topic maybe. and then you learn a lot from each other. So it's a very different thing to be in Israel, to talk about very interesting topics, controversial maybe, yeah. And then you get a perspective from China, from the US American perspective, and maybe the very special German perspective on all those topics. And it was a very exciting event in Israel, and I'm more than happy that we met.
Thank you. Likewise. And I know this is just the beginning of our travels together. But yeah, echoing that too, it's so important to have such a diverse community. Take us back to the very beginning. Where are you from, where you grew up, and then the path that led you to where you are today, making it to the Forbes list.
Okay. So I grew up in a very small town in Germany. And literally, I lived next to cows and horses. And with my brother, I remember this very well. I used to play hide and seek in the cornfields. And my grandparents were farmers, actually. And as you said, I'm the first person in my family that went to university. And I brought up with solid values, which I still live by. My father taught me one thing: live and let live. So he taught me a very liberal way of thinking. And at the same time, he taught me that I don't have to waste too much time and energy on what other people think about me. So I think those are two good, very learnings that help me as an entrepreneur in my daily life. And so I was initially drawn to the corporate world, and when I was in high school, I dreamed to become an investment banker, like Gordon Gekko, or maybe like the guy from Wolf of Wall Street. Yeah, I was
Jordan Belfort.
Yeah, right. I was 16, and I thought fast, big money would be a great idea for me. And this is why I started my career at a bank and worked in the financial industry for several years. But I felt that there was something missing in my life. So I did not have the feeling that my professional life was meaningful. In other words, that I did not see the purpose in my career life. And at the same time, I met one of my best friends. He's called Felix, and he told me about a great thing he did right after high school. So he went to Namibia in Africa in order to teach tennis. He used to become a professional tennis player, and he wanted to give something back to society. And at the same time, I worked as a volunteer soccer coach in my hometown as well. So he and I, both of us, we worked as volunteers, more or less. And both we liked international traveling. Still today, I used to do some distance traveling 1 or 2 or even 3 times a year. And I love new cultures. I love to experience new places. And I think this is what we have in common, Phil. You are a very open person, and you also like other cultures and to get new perspectives. And this is how you can learn about people, and this is what's very important in my life.
Yeah, it helps change your worldview, gives you a greater worldview because you have so many different extended perspectives across the areas of the world. And I love that you started out in banking, which is so dichotomous from what you're doing now. You took like the corporate job. First of all, you came from a farm, so that's even dichotomous in and of itself. And your dad sounds like an amazing man teaching you valuable lessons. you go into corporate bank, you're successful, you're making money, you're doing your thing, and then you didn't feel fulfilled. And so you see your friend goes on this volunteer trip teaching tennis, and then it inspired you to do something similar because you were teaching soccer already or football.
Correct. And he told me that it was pain in the ass to find a suitable volunteer project abroad. So all he found was high prices, very lack of transparency in the market. And there are thousands of NGOs in 80 or 90 countries that are searching for international volunteers, but they have no access to Western marketing sources. So there has to be.
So you saw a gap. You saw a gap in the market.
I saw a big gap, a very fragmented industry, and like the hotel industry 30 years ago or 20 years ago. So when you wanted to sleep, to have a hotel in another city, you called a hotel maybe, and nowadays we have Airbnb, we have Trivago, Booking.com, you name it. And at this time, we felt that there has to be a solution for that, a middleman, a matchmaker. And this is how we came up with the idea to build the Airbnb for international volunteering. So we said there must be a quality check or something, and tell people which projects are worth it to support, and which projects are not that good or have a limited.
You quality
Correct.
check not only the NGO and what's the project, so that way the volunteer isn't getting some BS internship busy work job. They're getting something that's meaningful to them, where they feel like they're really making an impact, and you're making sure it's a legitimate NGO or a legitimate nonprofit.
Correct. And we continued working behind the scenes and to build this platform and make volunteering more accessible to the world, for sure, right?
It's genius, because if you were a volunteer and you wanted to do this, you had to find an NGO, you had to call them up, hey, do you have a volunteer opportunity? You saw the gap. There's volunteers that want to travel the world and make an impact, and there's companies that are looking for these volunteers. So you became the middleman to make it easier with VolunteerWorld, your company now.
Yeah, correct. And I'm still so convinced that this idea is perfect for me, and has a very big contribution to the world. And this is why I quit my job in the financial industry at those times, and started my own business. And together with Christian, and he's my highly talented co-founder and the technical brain of VolunteerWorld, we started to fundamentally change the industry for international volunteering. And now we are the world's leading platform for volunteering abroad.
Wow. This is genius. It's one of those no-brainer ideas where you're like, I should have thought of that. It's so amazing, because you became just a platform for fulfilling people's wants and needs. So
correct.
Two questions, I'm sure the audience is thinking this too. What's the most common volunteer project that you get requested for? And two, where do most of your volunteers come from? And maybe even three, which country do they end up volunteering in most often?
Okay, not too hard to answer. Actually, it's sea turtle projects in Costa Rica. This is very popular.
Who doesn't want to help sea turtles in Costa Rica?
Correct. So protecting baby sea turtles and bring them to the sea is a very amazing job to do, a volunteer job to do. And I also visited a project in Costa Rica, and that's one interesting thing I want to mention. So it is 4 years ago, I went to that very tiny project and I told them about VolunteerWorld. Now they receive dozens of international volunteers, and this way they can finance their project. And it's getting bigger and bigger and more successful in terms of social impact. And now they have own staff. They have a management that is checking all those new volunteer bookings, and they have a whole process. And then you can, and VolunteerWorld help that particular project to grow. And this is amazing for me to see that my idea helped that project in Costa Rica. It's a bit incredible, right?
You're probably inspiring other individuals to become social entrepreneurs themselves.
I think it's a wonderful idea to have an own company and to do something good at the same time. So
yeah, doing good and doing well. Last time I was in Costa Rica, I met this girl who was doing yoga, and she was a yoga instructor in Costa Rica, and we asked her story, how she came to Costa Rica. She said she grew up in Toronto, the hustle bustle of Toronto life. It's like New York City. And she was the marketing director for Grey Goose vodka. And it was just so intense. And she said she was so burnt out that she just decided to quit everything, quit her job, cancel her lease, and move to Costa Rica to become a yoga instructor. And she said, I've been living a more fulfilling and happy life than I've ever had before. And she said her parents weren't too happy with it, but now they're excited every time they get to visit Costa Rica.
Great story. I have a good friend of mine. She did something similar. She wanted to do a world trip and ended up in Costa Rica as a yoga teacher as well. And she fell in love with a local in Costa Rica, and now she lived there for 2 or 3 years. So amazing stories.
So Sea Turtles, most popular volunteer project. Costa Rica is the country. And then where are the volunteers most often from?
Yeah, we have 2 big markets. For sure, it's the US American market, and we have a very strong European market, especially Germany and France are very supportive in terms of having international volunteers, and UK as well. Yeah. So actually, sometimes it's a bit strange why people from one country have many volunteers and other countries don't, but it's more or less a very cultural thing. So in the American society is very used to have that giving back spirit, right? Like making donations and help support your neighborhood, etc., etc. And some other countries don't have that kind of giving back movement in their.
Why do you think that is?
Historical. So if you look at the Arabian countries, they used to live in tribes, and they are very supportive in their tribe, but they don't. One tribe does not. So it's very general, right? But one tribe does not help the other one, but they help each other, and the community is very strong but very close. And there's one reason, but there are also religious reasons. So some religions say that you have to help each other, and no matter who, and who it is. It's very strong in the Jewish and Christian religion, and some also in the Islam. There's also the same fundamental base to support each other, but as I said, they have other historical roots with tribes, and but it's a very long story why people tend to volunteer in other countries. So there's no one answer for this, but
there's multiple variables that are affecting it. And I'm sure disposable income has something to do with it too. If you're worried about where your next meal is going to come from, you might be less inclined to travel the world and volunteer.
That's for sure. But also we have disparities in Europe, and even rich countries like Scandinavian countries, they don't do that international volunteering too much. And it also has to do something with the travel culture, or the share of people that travel abroad each year. And
the US is pretty high. I remember the Olympics in Russia, there was more Americans there for the Olympics than any other country in the world, second to Russia, of course. And I thought it was such an interesting statistic. And actually, when I was working in the Syrian refugee camps in Azraq in Jordan, they have the list of the donors. US was by far number one. It wasn't even close. Number two, the next closest was actually IKEA. Out of all the countries in the world, IKEA was number two in terms of numbers of dollars donated. I thought that was fascinating. And it was interesting because, like you said about keeping it within the tribe, there wasn't many Middle Eastern countries on that list in terms of the top 10. I think it was the top 20 there, even though it was people of their own kind. It was interesting. But I think what your platform allows people to do is travel with spending less money, so they're not needing disposable income as much, so they can get those alternative perspectives. They can change their worldview and see multiple cultures around the world without spending an arm and a leg. So how do you make it more affordable for those that might not have the disposable income that a wealthy American or European has, for example?
Yeah, so we don't make up the prices, but the volunteer organizations have the choice to quote their volunteer programs, and we have free volunteer programs. We have volunteer programs that are very affordable and very cheap, and we have very fancy programs. You have your own hotel with your wildlife project, and that can cost up to $1,000 a week, US dollars. And also scuba diving projects are very expensive. But if you want to teach abroad, as an English teacher, for example, it can be very cheap, like only maybe $3 or $50 a week, and it will include housing, meals, transportation. Yeah. So
and
I think
can they go on their, if an audience member is listening and they want to go to your website and choose a category, do you have them broken down into categories like environmental projects, human impact projects, financial impact projects?
Yeah, for sure. So actually we have a budget filter, and you can filter for teaching programs in Africa, which costs less than $50 a week in May 2021. And then we show you 20 or 30 programs, and then you can go on the map and check out what's the area. And there's also a live chat, and you get free consulting from our people, and you just tell them what you want to do. And even if you have a very abstract wish, like I want to volunteer with animals somewhere in Africa, something like that, we can help you out and
narrow it down to exactly what they're looking for.
We narrow down. Yeah. What's your budget? When do you want to travel? How old are you? What are your skills? What's your goal? Yeah.
What does your heart desire?
Yeah, right.
And does the NGO, I'm assuming, offer subsidizing in some cases? Like maybe they'll pay for a portion of the travel or lodging?
It depends. Yeah. So as I told you, we have free programs. So lodging is for free. And if you come with your partner or with your family, we have special offerings as a group. For example, we have group discounts, and we also have a special discount now if you commit for the next year, if you want to travel in 2021 due to the Corona crisis, we have a 30% discount.
It's amazing. So if you enroll before June 30th, audience members, you can save up to 30% for your next meaningful trip in 2021. So you can plan your journey now and travel next year after the COVID crisis. And Pascal and his team were generous enough and nice enough to offer you in the audience a coupon code. If you use the coupon code PHIL30, you get $30 discount on VolunteerWorld, outside of the additional offer that you've provided. And so thank you for being generous. And can you tell us maybe how you started this once you became successful? Like, how did you find success? How did you get to that point where you're like, oh, this is actually working?
Yeah, tough one. Every good founding story starts with a lot of failures that teach you a lot. And I remember very well that there was an investment round, I think in the second or third year of VolunteerWorld coming up. And although everything was verbally agreed, everything got cancelled last minute. And that's one of those moments you feel let down, defeated, and you blame yourself the most. And you constantly ask yourself, what did wrong and why, and what could have changed in this moment? And the truth is, even after a thorough analysis, I did not know what happened. And I may never know, but so what should happen? And back to the story, we needed to prepare for a new round for sure within 2 days. And you really learn how to switch gears in those moments when something like this happens, right? And it's very empowering to be able to pivot during difficult situations and focus. You have to focus on the goal when this happens. And at the end of the day, we closed the round with a different investor. And it was like in a movie in the last 10 seconds. And before we could have gone bankrupt. So it was very close.
Wow.
It was.
Sometimes
I cried a bit in this situation when the investor canceled. I was like, it took me like a month to convince him. And then he called me and said, sorry, Pascal, I can't do it. And then he hung up. So like, what the fuck is happening here?
No, I totally get it. I actually empathize with you. I had a similar situation, and you start doubting yourself. You doubt the idea.
Correct.
You doubt, do I have the right team members? You start questioning everything. What did I do wrong? And sometimes you need to learn to not take it personal and keep moving forward. Progress equals happiness. And you decided, I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm not going to give up. And it's like there's a saying in America, don't count your chickens before they hatch, and don't count your checks before they cash. So it doesn't really count until you have the money in the bank. I don't care if they say the wire transfer is happening. Until the money is in your account, it doesn't count. So what did you do in that moment? That must have been a traumatic moment. What did you do to overcome that fear, anxiety, stress?
I went jogging, like for an hour. It's like I did sports, and I cried. So like, and I was overwhelmed, like emotionally, and I thought I felt empty and alone. And I called my family and my best friend, and then I knew that I only have 2 more days, and then I worked my ass off. I grabbed the phone and I called everyone I knew at this time who had money. There was no plan B.
You turned that energy into something positive. You had anger, sadness, anxiety, stress, and you just decided to pivot that energy into something more productive, more positive, into attracting the new investor, which ultimately worked. And that must have been a proud moment. How did you feel at that moment once you got the money in the bank from the new investor?
Like it was overwhelming. Like at this moment, I forgot all the pain I felt for 2 days at this time. Yeah, and I was very tired then. Yeah, so I focused my energy was focused on that round, and when I closed it, I think I slept for 1 day only. I was out of my energy package was empty, or how do you put it? But I think you got it right. So I was happy, but I was
You were exhausted. You were
exhausted.
drained. Your
Correct.
energy was
Yeah,
drained. I
correct.
mean, when you go through all these ups and downs and the roller coaster, I forget who said this, but they said success is just moving from one failure to the next without losing enthusiasm.
Yeah. Look at the Corona crisis now. So we had the best figures ever in January, February this year, and then our bookings dropped, I think, 95%. And I think and there is still no intercontinental travel yet, and we don't think that there will be much this year. But there are two lessons: so never give up and don't panic. Yeah, yeah, and I'm very proud to say that we had not to fire anyone from our core team in these times. Yeah, despite the tense situation. Yeah, which still continues. Yeah, we look at. Yeah, please.
What did you do to manage that? Because your business directly relies and depends on the travel industry. So how did you adjust?
Yeah, we look ahead and focus on the business we can achieve now under these special circumstances. And as I said, we have that early bird promotion, which works very well. So people still love traveling. But they are banned; they can't travel. And when they commit now and book a volunteer project until June 30th, end of June, they can save a lot of money, and they help those NGOs with their money now, right?
That's smart. That's talk about playing offense rather than defense. You're
correct.
And those that are listening, you're getting into the market at a discount. So you're getting an opportunity to travel the world, make a meaningful impact on someone's life or something's life, like an environment or an animal. And you can do that now. So those that are listening, sign up for this amazing opportunity. Do you have an age requirement? Do you have to be a student?
16. You have to be at least 16, but it also depends on the project. For some projects, you have to have academic credits, at least, for example, for medical projects. And yeah, it highly depends on the program, but there are also many programs that don't have that high requirements.
And what's the most common NGO that people like to work with outside of the project? Is there a particular NGO or nonprofit that receives more requests than any other?
Yes. So we also work with agencies like, and they have several NGOs, and they manage several NGOs. And I think there's an Australian volunteer agencies, and they have themselves projects in 20 countries. And I think they are very responsive. They are affordable. They have high quality projects. And you know that this is value for money if you go with them, and we promote them.
And you have you have rating and review systems. So
totally.
Volunteers that have been on that project before can share their insights, what they liked, what they didn't like.
I think we have 16,000 reviews on VolunteerWorld. Wow. And yeah, this is our big asset. So you can check out the opinions of former volunteers, and this is what people want to see. You don't want to see the brochure of a product, but when you go to Amazon.com and you check out a new product, you want to read those reviews of the other customers, and that is what
Yes.
you rely on. And this is why they have to be one centralized platform. This is VolunteerWorld for the
So what
meaningful
if you're a
travel
company?
industry.
What if you're a company and you want to get on the platform to start attracting volunteers? How do they do that?
Like marketing wise.
Let's say they want to get on your platform and they
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
start
So
bringing in volunteers through your platform.
like an NGO, like want to work with. Okay, I got it. So very easy. They get in touch with our live chat, or there is a registration form, and then there's a vetting process, a multi-level vetting process, and we have an interview with the project manager. We need some documents. We ask former volunteers of that project if it's worth it to go there. We check out the neighborhood, where the next medical doctor, how do you get there?
You fully vet them in every way.
Correct.
You're thinking through what the volunteer might think. Like, what happens if there's an emergency? What is my living condition going to be like? Is the project going to be meaningful enough?
So we know that this is pain to collect all those information, and this is why we put them directly online, to have all of those valuable information on one page. So this is our service.
It's amazing. How did you get those initial customers? When you first got the platform, how did you get all the volunteers on there? How did you get the right NGOs on there? And because I always think about hustling. When you're a startup, you have to hustle. So what's something scrappy you did to hustle that maybe you couldn't have revealed in the very beginning, but you can reveal now?
Okay, big secret. Since we started in 2015, we always claimed that we are the world's leading platform for international volunteering, even when we did not have one single successful booking on our website.
We are the world's best.
Yeah, right.
And then you ended up becoming the world's largest. And so you've had to fake it till you make it.
Correct. So either I'm very confident or I can look into the future, Phil. Make a choice. Yeah.
Yeah, you created your future rather than letting it be decided for you. You manifested it into reality.
Yeah, I took the red pill.
Good answer. The Matrix, for those that don't understand what he means. So let's transition now into something I like to call the under 30 seconds round. All right. I'm going to fire off some questions. Answer with the first one that comes to mind. Ready? All right, I'm ready. What is the book you've gifted Pascal more than any other book, and why?
Easy one. George Bucay, Let Me Tell a Story. It's about 50 or 60 philosophical short stories that give you inspiration and a different perspective on your daily life.
Boom. What's one of the best investments and one of the worst investments you've ever made, and why?
Best investment, Tinder Gold package. This is how I met my girlfriend. And worst investment,
Tinder Gold package. That's amazing.
Worst investment. I sold trading cards. I don't know if they are famous in the US. It's called magic cards or something like that. At a very low price. And why? Because I badly wanted a new computer when I was 12, 13 or 14, like very young. And lesson learned, take your time for a good deal and have a holistic view on your whole transaction.
Good answer. What's the most impactful thing you do in your morning routine and the most impactful thing you do in your evening routine?
Cool. So Phil, I know you like those self-optimization things, but I have to confess, I don't believe in that new age delusion, but I'm a big believer in getting enough rest and enjoying life. As you may know, I sleep in. Yeah, I really sleep in and relax in my free time because I'm a night owl and I often work very long hours. And I work in my own rhythm and get my best work done in the evening or even at night.
You don't force yourself. You make sure you're well rested. I mean, that's so important. It's not how many hours you're awake. It's what you get done in the hours you're awake. So it doesn't matter what time you wake up. If you're more productive in the 1 hour that you have, then you're better off. And you're going to be more productive if your brain is well rested.
Correct.
Number 4, pretend you won the Peter Thiel Fellowship and you were going to get money to start a business instead of go to college. What's the very first thing you do to start a new business?
So that means I get 2 years time and have $100,000, right? Tricky. Maybe I work on a solution for parabolic flights, and that they can get more affordable. Why? I would like to feel the weightlessness in space and for once in my life, and I'm a big science fiction fan, and yeah, maybe I use this money for that dream.
There you go.
Follow.
You create a platform for those that want this same adventure. It'll pay for your trip.
Correct. Yeah, right.
Last question in this round. What's something you never knew you needed?
Wow. I pass. What's something? No.
VolunteerWorld.
Yeah, maybe this one. Yeah.
There you go. And so actually this allows me to dive in a little bit deeper then. When you were first getting that initial base of users and NGOs, and you said we claimed ourselves the number one, the largest in the world, did you share that through Facebook ads, Instagram ads? How did you get the initial set of users and NGOs?
So we are in a niche market with international volunteering, and so AdWords or Google Ads, what's called now, it's very good for us because you know the intention of our customer when she typed it into the search form, right?
So you know the keywords that they're going to be typing in. Correct.
So that's very good for niche markets. So it's a very complicated product, and it takes a lot of time to make the final decision. And it turned out it's very expensive to retarget cold customers on Facebook or Instagram. So first of all, we try to attract all people that actively search for the product. And in the second tier, we target all those people with a lookalike audience that are very similar to our core target group.
That makes sense, because most of your users, if you want to volunteer, you'd probably go to Google and say, volunteer opportunities. And now you know what those words are going to be for the next subset of the population looking for the same idea. So that's amazing. I love the work you're doing. I know the listeners are going to benefit from this, and the companies that are listening that want to attract volunteers. This is the place to do it. The world's largest. Pascal, thank you so much for being here today. Before you go, what's the next big goal, milestone, or bucket list item you want to achieve?
Okay, easy one. Leading my travel startup out of a crisis with global travel restrictions, and on a personal level, Phil, meeting you again in person.
Thank you. I know it'll be soon. You know, Tampa, Florida is at 50% capacity. So please come get the antibody. You're going to be good to go. And we might have to do a repeat episode with you after you've survived with your company during this crisis, because a lot of companies are not surviving and are going to fail. So your success story is going to be one listeners will definitely benefit from after this. Where do listeners go to connect with you directly?
On LinkedIn. That's a good place.
Okay, we'll put it in the show notes. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, I want to say that I'm looking forward to our second podcast, and the VolunteerWorld is ready to strike back and kick ass post-coronavirus.
You heard it first, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here today. This is Pascal with VolunteerWorld, who's connecting volunteers with nonprofits and NGOs around the world to make meaningful impact. We've learned so much: what to do when you don't get that investment, how to keep moving forward, how to make sure you're going to Costa Rica to enjoy your life and save the sea turtles. Pascal, thank you so much for being here today. It was such a pleasure. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I hope this episode helped you as much as it helped me. Have an amazing day. Thanks for joining us today. I hope this episode helped you as much as it helped me. Who do you think would benefit from hearing it? You can make an impact on their life by sharing it now. Before you go, I encourage you to tell us your favorite part of the episode in the review section. Now it's time to level up. Level up.